You can text Dan, D-A-N, to the Sounding Unlimited WTMJ Talk and Text line, 855-616-1620. Text Dan, and we will send you a link to a little bit more information about the show and how to get tickets right there.
And Sinise, he's no stranger to the theater, right?
That's right.
Because
His roots are in the theater.
Yeah.
Tell us about Steppenwolf a little bit. That's really important work, oftentimes begins there.
Yes. So he grew up in the Highland Park area in Chicago, or outside of Chicago, and started the Steppenwolf Theater, which I think was in the basement of a church or something like that. It had its roots. Just like Skylight started out in a teeny tiny black box theater, and now we perform at the Cavett Theater. But he understood, he loved the theater, and has worked not only through Steppenwolf but on Broadway, and that led to film and television and fame and fortune as Lieutenant Dan and other things. But he goes back to his roots, and that's where he first ignited his passion for performing, and he does understand what it is that nonprofit theaters go through. All theater companies, it's difficult, especially post-pandemic. We have a hard time raising funds, and we see that our audiences have not come back completely. And so he wanted to do something to help us, and it was really an amazing, generous offer we could not refuse.
You know what I find remarkable about him is obviously the work that he's doing, and as a performer yourself, there are some folks, whether it be TV, film, stage, who shy away from the character that made them famous for so many people. They, I do other work. I'm doing this. Let's talk about this or that. Here's something off my new album, right?
Right, exactly. But he leans into it in this very special way.
Speaking of special surprise for you, we have him on the line right now. Gary Sinise is with us live on Wisconsin's Morning News. Gary, good morning.
Hey, good morning to you. How are you?
Wonderful. So glad to hear your voice and really appreciate you taking a few minutes to join us this morning. But more importantly, to come up here and to bring your band to Milwaukee. I was just saying to Susan here from Skylight how there are those people whom we meet from time to time in the arts who shy away from that character that made them famous, that everybody knows them for. You have fully leaned into Lieutenant Dan, and you're doing good work with it.
Well, there was kind of no getting around it. It's like everybody in the world has seen that movie multiple times over the years, and everywhere I go, for many, many years, it was Lieutenant Dan this and Lieutenant Dan that. And, when I wanted to entertain our troops when they started deploying to Iraq and Afghanistan, we started having people get hurt and, families losing loved ones and all of that. And I wanted to do something. So I started going on USO tours, and then I wanted to take some musicians with me. And at that time, so this is going back to 2003. This is even prior to having a television series when you're on every night or every week for multiple seasons. The audience kind of gets used to you and gets to know you a bit. But prior to CSI New York, the series I was doing, I'd done a few movies. Apollo 13 and a few others, and Forrest Gump was certainly one of them. And I started going on these tours, and I realized that people weren't sure of what my real name was, but they recognized me from the movie. So I just said, well, I'm going to name the band after the character, and then maybe they'll figure out who's coming to see them.
For folks who don't know the band either, Gary, you guys actually really rock. I mean, there's plenty of stuff out there on the internet if folks want to look it up, but you play all kinds of music, and it's just in and of its own right, a pretty good band.
It's a great band. I have stalked it on YouTube. I have stalked your band for years on YouTube, and you do an amazing job.
Thank you for stalking us, Susan. Thank you.
Well, your ears must have been ringing.
Plenty of videos on the Gary Sinise Foundation website. The band, when I started the foundation, having done multiple tours for the USO and all of that, I wanted the band to be a program of the foundation so that the resources of, the generosity of the American people could support what I wanted to do on military bases and at military hospitals. So one of the things that we do with the generous donations that come in is provide this entertainment. And we're going to hit our 600th show this year. This summer, I think we'll play our 600th show.
That's incredible.
For military. And, that's a lot of shows over the years, but it's, it's something that's very, very important to me. And I've seen it lift people up, and we play, it's a variety show. We play a lot of different tunes, all songs that everybody loves. So it's just nonstop audience participation and singing along with the show and having a good time. It's a really good band. Everybody's a professional musician except for me. I'm the actor in the band.
Gary, how is the reaction? You said it lifts people up. Have you seen that? How are our service members feeling when they see a familiar face? I imagine you make a lot of friends really quickly.
I wouldn't have played all these shows if I didn't think it was lifting people up and helping people out. And from the get-go, I could see that, just showing up, giving a little entertainment, shaking some hands, taking some pictures, visiting with the troops, letting them know we appreciate them and we're grateful for what they're doing out there. I could see that was making a difference. And then that made me want to go back and do it again. And then I did it again, and you can see the impact. And now it's just hundreds and hundreds of shows and visits and multiple hospital visits to patients and all of that. All that manifested itself into what ended up being the Gary Sinise Foundation.
Gary Sinise.
And what Susan was talking
Gary.
about. Yeah, what Susan was talking about is, a lot of the origins of all of this go way back before Forrest Gump and, back into the Steppenwolf Theater days in the early 80s and all of that, wanting to support our Vietnam veterans back then. And the program that we have that we support at Skylight, the origins of that go back 40 years to when we started bringing veterans into Steppenwolf and letting them see the shows for free and providing meals for them and all of that. And now that I have a foundation, I wanted to continue to connect the theater community, which is a big part of my life over the years, to the veteran part of my life and the veteran support part of my life. So that's why we support theaters around the country who want to engage with their local veterans and show their support. And they provide the tickets to the show, and we provide the meals.
Talking with Gary Sinise. He's going to be doing a show with his Lieutenant Dan Band Monday, July 14th at the Aurora Pavilion on the Summerfest grounds. Gary, let's talk about the state of local theater all across the country. And, you as a founder of Steppenwolf, and Milwaukee well as well. I think Eric, my partner here, always says, we battle above our weight class all the time in Milwaukee.
I think so.
For the quality of theater and the performing arts that we have here. That said, there are many companies that are struggling right now to stay afloat and to do the important work that ultimately we one day see as, the Hamiltons and the big shows on Broadway. But, man, it all starts at the local level somewhere.
Yeah, well, that for so many of us, that's where it starts. You just start out as a kid doing plays, and you do it wherever you can, and then it turns into something. Michael Unger, who is the artistic director over there at Skylight. I've known Michael for over 50 years. We went to the same high school together, and he was in the theater department there. I was a little bit older than he was. But we both came out of the theater department. I started Steppenwolf with some of my pals, and Michael was, he was around in those early days of Steppenwolf, hanging out with us. And I have a funny story where one of the first plays that we did at Steppenwolf in 1976 was a play called Indian Wants the Bronx. It's a one-act play. We did 4 one-act plays, and Indian Wants the Bronx is about these two street punks who come across this kind of sad, lost Hindu Indian who doesn't speak any English at all. And he's lost standing on a street corner by a phone booth, trying to figure out how to get out of there. And these two punks come along and harass him and torture him and everything like that. It's a little bit brutal. But to warm up for that show, me and Terry Kinney, who played the two punks, we would run around outside the theater for, an hour before the show started. And Michael ended up being the guy we chased around the neighborhood and tried to torture.
Well,
And we
worked
chased
out.
Michael all over the place. I remember throwing him into a dumpster one time. we just harassed him, and he was our warm up. And then we would just run in and run onto the stage, and the show would start. And it was pretty funny.
Yada, yada, yada. He's doing a show in Milwaukee. It all
Yes.
comes back.
Yeah.
Do you have just some off the wall questions, Gary? Are you a musical person, or are you more just straight plays? And if you have a musical or a play, anything among your favorites?
Well, at Steppenwolf, we weren't really known for doing musicals.
Right, no.
We did a couple, but God, oh dear. Going back to the 70s, I remember we thought, well, we're struggling to get people to come. We had a little basement theater in the basement of a closed down Catholic school, and we built this little theater in there, and we were trying to get people to come to the show. To the shows we were doing, and we were doing some kind of brutal plays. Like I said, one of the first we did was about two punks beating up a guy. And so we
Not
thought,
really
well, let's do a
musical
musical.
Yeah. I don't know.
Let's
there
do
are
a
worse
musical.
musicals.
Let's see if we can get some people to come to the show. And so we put this musical together, which was it was a sort of collage of Harold Arlen, I remember, and Cole Porter, and a couple other great writers, and we did a bunch of their songs and kind of put it all together into a musical. And it was a terrible failure, and we didn't do a musical again until many years later. But the first play that I was ever in was West Side Story.
Oh,
And
that's a good
Oh,
musical.
speaking of street punks, right? Yeah,
yeah,
perfect,
exactly.
right?
That got me hooked. I was a sophomore in high school, and the story goes, I was just flunking out of school. I was playing in a rock band. I was ditching class. I was hanging out in the hallway with some of the raggedy looking band members, and the drama teacher came up to us and said we looked perfect to play the gang members in West Side Story, and we should come and audition.
It's a compliment.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I went to audition, and I got in the play, and that I haven't, I kept doing it ever since then, and now I'm not so much anymore. But for many, many years, building Steppenwolf and all that, theater was my primary focus.
Have you ever stolen any props? Because Back to the Future is in the news because they're trying to find that Red Gibson that Marty McFly played back in 1985. That guitar is missing, and the cast is looking for it. Did you ever steal any props back in the day that you had to have at home?
I'm sure I have stolen props. One prop
He's going on the
One
record
that
that
I-
has stolen
I'll-
props.
yes, of course, you steal props and wardrobe and all that kind of stuff. One thing I wish I'd kind of wrangled was the Lieutenant Dan wheelchair, and
Oh, yeah.
somebody bought that, and somebody has it somewhere, and I wish we had that. I'd put it in my office and let people sit in it.
That would be a good one to have.
Gary Sinise live with us here on Wisconsin's Morning News. Gary, really look forward to the show. Appreciate all the work that you do here locally and across the country, and everything you do for our men and women in uniform and the veterans as well. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Let's sell it out and have a great show in Milwaukee.